Hello and welcome to this video on Micro GC Fusion installation. This presentation covers the basic of installation in order to get an instrument up and running. We will cover the following topics: preparing for installation, which will discuss the pre-installation checklist, what tools will be required, and what is included in the Micro GC Fusion chip kit. This information is critical to know before an installer arrives on site. Next, we will discuss in depth how to install the GC, including unboxing, installing the carrier gas, installing vent lines, installing the Wi-Fi antenna, powering on, and connecting to Micro GC Fusion using a device such as a computer. Preparing for installation. It is important to have the following materials available at the time of installation. Some items, such as calibration gas, may take several weeks to ship, so all required items must be evaluated 2 to 3 weeks before desired installation. If training is purchased from INFICON, a pre-installation checklist is sent to the end user by INFICON personnel. It outlines all of the necessary materials needed for installation. For those installing the GC without an INFICON professional, the checklist is available on our website at the following link. This slide outlines the basic materials listed in the pre-installation checklist. These items are high purity carrier gas, a dual stage regulator capable of providing 60 psi, a hydrocarbon moisture trap for the carrier gas lines, GC grade copper or stainless steel tubing, an assortment of swage lock parts, a calibration gas that matches the sample and composition, proper space and venting, access to a power outlet, and a device to connect to Micro GC Fusion. If applicable, a dedicated IP address can be provided by an IT professional. There are certain tools that are user supplied. We recommend a 1 1/8 inch wrench for the carrier gas tank, Teflon tape for connections, a series of open-ended wrenches, hex drivers, a tubing cutter, and an assortment of swage lock fittings. Some of these tools are included in an optional install kit sold by INFICON. Appropriate personal protective equipment must be provided as outlined in the chemical safety data sheets. Every Micro GC Fusion arrives with a ship kit, but the contents may differ depending on the instrument configuration. When received, verify that all components are present in the ship kit. The following items are common to all instruments. This includes 10 feet of copper tubing, nut and ferrule sets, an Ethernet cable, and a quick start guide. Depending on the sample inlet style, there are different items included in the ship kit. For a standard inlet, the kit includes a sample inlet filter, a dual-ended ferrule for this filter, a small 1/16 inch piece of sample tubing, and a 5-pack of replacement frets for the sample inlet filter. For the internal sample conditioner configuration, a quick connect is provided. The number of carrier gas ports will determine the number of carrier gas inline filters that are provided. The power supply for the 2-module configuration is external, and the following supply and cable are included in the shipment. The 3 to 4 module configuration has the power supply built in, but still comes with a country-specific power cord. The next section will cover the installation. Installation can be completed by the end user or by an INFICON professional if on-site training is purchased. Unboxing the instrument and verifying the ship kit contents. Open the packaging for Micro GC Fusion and remove the ship kit. Use the provided checklist to ensure that all components are included. Gently remove the instrument from the foam supported. Remove the plastic covering and set Micro GC Fusion down on a flat surface with room to work. You will need access to the back of the instrument in order to install the carrier gas, vent lines, Wi-Fi antenna, power cord, and Ethernet cord. Make sure there is at least 2.5 inches or 6.5 centimeters around the instrument at all times, and do not restrict airflow around the GC. You will want to make sure that the fan exhaust at the back of the instrument is not blocked. Do not place Micro GC Fusion on top of foam, as this will stop airflow through the bottom of the Micro GC. Once the instrument is unboxed, the carrier gas can be installed. The following items are required: the carrier gas or gases. Depending on the configuration, you may need one or more of these gases. Typically, they are high purity helium or argon. A dual-stage regulator capable of providing at least 60 to 62 psi is also required. A carrier gas particulate filter is included with the ship kit for each type of carrier gas. This is installed a couple inches from the Micro GC Fusion carrier gas inlet. 10 feet of copper tubing is included with the ship kit, but this may not be sufficient for all setups. We recommend GC-grade, pre-cleaned tubing in either 1/8 inch copper or stainless steel for the carrier gas lines. While not required, a hydrocarbon moisture trap is recommended, especially if using argon carrier gas that is not ultra-high pure. Make sure to review and follow all safety instructions and warnings as listed in Chapter 6, Installation of the Micro GC Fusion Operating Vent Manual available at our website. This schematic shows a typical carrier gas setup. A tank of carrier gas is connected to a dual-stage regulator. Tubing is installed between this regulator and the optional hydrocarbon moisture trap. It is recommended to orient this trap vertically with the flow moving upward. Further tubing connects the trap and the carrier gas particulate filter. This gets installed a few inches before the carrier gas inlet on the back of the GC. For sampling, the sample is connected either directly to the GC or through an optional sample conditioner. Sample that goes into the GC vents out of the back through the column and sample pump vents located on the back of the instrument. The connections on the back will be further explained. This is the back view of a 1 to 2 module Micro GC Fusion. The analytical and reference gas vent ports are located on the top and the middle of the back panel, one set for each module. The analytical vent contains sample gas plus carrier gas, while the reference gas just contains carrier gas. The carrier gas is always flowing through these modules and out of these vents at a small rate of flow. The Wi-Fi antenna can be installed on the right side of the back panel. It allows for communication using a web-enabled device, such as a smartphone or tablet, but does not have to be installed if not desired. The carrier gas inlets are located toward the bottom and will either have 1 or 2 connections depending on the carrier gas configuration. The sample pump vent is located on the right. This vents sample gas while the sample pump is on, which is customized in the method setup. The electrical connections and LAN connector are seen here. The auxiliary I/O is optional and provides a trigger function if desired. The USB port allows for the connection of the VC sampling valve. The RJ45 LAN connector uses a standard Ethernet cable, which is provided in the ship kit to connect to a computer. Finally, the power supply port is located toward the bottom center of the back panel. It is important to note that any toxic sample gases will vent out of the analytical and sample vent ports, so these connections should be vented appropriately, which will be discussed later in the video. For the carrier gas, Micro GC Fusion supports 4 different gases: helium, hydrogen, argon, and nitrogen. The minimum required pressure is 60 to 62 psi, but the carrier gas can be set up to 80 to 82 psi if the carrier gas line is shared with other instruments. The 3 to 4 module chassis is similar, but the connections are located in slightly different places. The analytical and reference vents are located both on the left and right side of the back panel. The sample pump vent is located in the middle of the two. If a rear sample inlet is configured, it will be located here. Carrier gas inlets are also located on the left and right side of the chassis, with the power and Ethernet connectors in between. This video will show you the steps to install the carrier gas. This Micro GC Fusion is configured with a single carrier gas inlet that provides carrier gas to both modules. The Micro GC Fusion comes with a quick start guide that outlines the carrier gas installation procedure, as we can see here. Take a few minutes to review this document and make sure your supplies are ready. Make sure the Micro GC is on a workbench with sufficient space to reach the back. In this setup, the carrier gas is plumbed into the wall lines. For setups using an individual tank, you would first make sure to install a dual-stage regulator and set it to 60 to 62 psi. The ship kit contains a small spool of copper tubing, though you can use your own if extra is needed. Remove it from the packaging. Unwind a bit of the tubing and then remove the cap from the end. Make sure to have your tubing cutter readily available. Cut a small piece of tubing at the length of a few inches using the tubing cutter. When cutting the tubing, make sure that the end is smooth and does not have any burrs, which would make it difficult for a swage lock nut and ferrule to slip over. This piece will connect the GC to the carrier gas particulate filter. This filter should be installed a few inches before the carrier gas inlet. Remove the cap from the GC carrier gas inlet and install the short piece of tubing and the carrier gas particulate filter. The carrier gas particulate filter will have an arrow indicating the direction of the flow. Ensure that the arrow is pointed towards the GC. Tighten all fittings, but do not over-tighten. If you have two or more carrier gas inlets that are using the same carrier gas source, you can install a T to connect both inlets, followed by the carrier gas particulate filter. Next, we will be connecting the remaining tubing to the carrier gas source. If you have an optional hydrocarbon moisture trap, this would get installed on the line now. If you have two carrier gas inlets that require different carrier gas types, follow this procedure again to install the second carrier gas onto the C2 carrier gas inlet. Swage all the appropriate nuts and ferrules onto the copper tubing. Tighten them a quarter turn past finger tight and be careful not to over tighten. When all of the connections are tight, you can turn on the carrier gas, ensuring that the regulator is set to 60 psi. Disconnect the GC inlet fitting slightly in order to purge the carrier gas line for 15 to 30 seconds. Retighten the fitting. Your carrier gas lines are now installed. Any gas that goes into micro GC fusion will come out through the back vent ports. These ports are analytical, reference, and pump. For any dangerous chemicals, please plumb a vent line to each port individually. It is very important not to tee any of these lines together, as each line will have a different rate of flow. This will avoid back pressure into the instrument. Run the tube outside to a hood or a chemical trap. The sample inlet filter comes with every GC in the ship kit. The piece itself is composed of Part A, Part B, a filter disc, and a dual-ended ferrule. Parts A, B, and the filter disc are all pre-assembled at the factory. The ship kit also comes with a set of 5 spare filter discs. To install this filter, first place the dual-ended ferrule inside Part A of the filter assembly. Connect the sample inlet filter to the instrument sample inlet and turn Part A clockwise until finger tight. Then, use a 5/16 inch wrench to tighten an additional quarter turn while stabilizing Part B with a 7/16 inch wrench, but do not over tighten. Powering on. Press the power button on the front of the instrument. The green button will illuminate and you will hear the instrument turn on. Allow a minute or two to fully boot up. When fully booted, the front panel will display and the user interface will be accessible. MicroGC Fusion can connect either through Wi-Fi or a standard LAN cable. The Wi-Fi antenna can be found in the ship kit. For method development and operation, a computer is the best device to use, as it allows for a bigger screen for common operations. The embedded software is license-free and works with any platform. In addition, the software works with common web browsers such as Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge, and Mozilla Firefox. The Wi-Fi antenna is not installed by default, but is included in every ship kit. Screw the antenna onto the back of the GC to the correct port. Ensure that the top of the antenna is facing up. MicroGC Fusion can be connected using a standard Ethernet cable in two ways. The first is a direct connection to the computer. By default, the MicroGC Fusion uses a 169.254.1.1 IP address. This IP address shows up in the upper right-hand corner of the instrument front panel. Connect the Ethernet cable to the back of the GC and connect the other end directly into the computer's Ethernet port. Make sure to change the LAN settings for this port to see the GC. In this example, the computer's LAN would have to be set as follows. If this IP address is not desired, the GC can be set to a static IP address. A list of compatible IP addresses can be found in the operating manual and the video titled IP Configuration Web Training, which outlines the procedure. Both can be found at www.inficon.com. After connecting, to view the interface, simply type the IP address into a supported web browser. For a network connection, a hub is required. By default, when connected to a network, MicroGC Fusion uses a Dynamic Host Control Protocol, or DHCP. This means it will automatically find an available IP address on the network and use it for the instrument. The IP address that it finds will display in the upper right-hand corner of the front panel. Alternately, this IP address can be changed to a static IP address provided by an IT professional. Connect the Ethernet cable to the back of the GC, then to a hub that is connected to the network. Any other computer connected to the network can access the GC by typing the IP address into a supported web browser. Now that the tubing and cables are all connected, you are now ready to access the main page and use the instrument software. To access the Fusion main page, on the computer or tablet, type the IP address into a supported web browser. The MicroGC Fusion main page will then display as a tab in the web browser. Congratulations! MicroGC Fusion is now installed. From the main page, the next steps can be taken to create a method, calibrate the GC, run a sample, and review the data. All of this material is covered in the MicroGC Fusion one-day training, which can be done either remote or on-site. Alternately, the operating manual contains all of these procedures and is available on our website at www.inficon.com. Thank you for listening to this installation video. If you have any questions, please reach out to INFICON and we will be happy to answer any questions you have.